There we go. We're live. Hello. I have not been hosting these things for a while. What am I supposed to say? Welcome to the last for now. Like, I don't know if we plan on doing the third one when it eventually comes out, but like the last of the regularly scheduled Kristoffalong
monthly ones.
Well, this one hasn't even been monthly, has it? Thank you to people that are joining us. Well, actually, I believe who we do have in the comments is Ash, who is only here because we had to postpone it last week because she was not available last week.
It works out better for some Ash who can get involved in the conversation. I totally planned this.
Oh, we all. Hello. So we are here to talk about Empire of the Damned.
I don't have my copy. It's in the bedroom when I can't be able to get it.
I haven't shuffled my shelves yet to fit this on, so it's still here.
I may be selling this version of it, which I knew before I got it. Basically, I put it on. I've got the Lumicrate edition, but I ordered this when it was like the triple points Black Friday thing from Waterstones, and I couldn't cancel it. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to get it, and then I'll sell the 2 Waterstones ones I have. But
yeah.
But she does appreciate that she be here. Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, Lisa last week came on Sprints at 12 o'clock when the live show was at 7:30 and said that she had 7.5 hours of the audiobook left, and there were chatty bits in between. So we got here eventually. I believe I should confirm. Have we all finished the book?
Yes.
Well done. Go team.
Did I also finish the book on the same day as the live show? Yes.
I mean,
with
more so did I technically, but I finished it at like 8:30 in the morning.
No. I finished, I think, what did I say? I had 4 hours left when we started Sprints. I think I was about 3 o'clock.
Okay.
And then I sat and did nothing until I continued reading. And then I was like, right, I need to read something now.
I should say from the start, anyone who hasn't read the book, I would disappear because we're not going to sort of not do spoilers in this because it's very hard to not do spoilers when it's a sequel anyway. And also, like, we always try and do like a bit where we're like, well, we will be non-spoilery at the beginning and then you instantly want to talk about things. So what's the point?
Yeah.
My brain jumps around all over the place. If anybody has done a live show with me, you will know that 90% of the time I talk about something that's 3/4 of the way through the book because it's what my brain lands on first. So, sorry.
So we should start off by saying, what was everyone's... Wait, 1 second. Only 3/4?
Where's the way through the book? There's normally something that happens. It's like your third act, like, thing.
Smash is like, I've done too many of these live shows with her now. I know how this goes.
So is Lisa. I mean,
I didn't watch the Massalong ones because like reasons, but I would have been intrigued to see you trying to talk about 2 books in one live show.
We actually did not bad talking about 2 books in one live show.
You didn't just start jumping around back and forth.
Oh, we did, but we went by character. We genuinely didn't do it like chronological because neither of us could remember what came when because we like tandemed. So we basically talked about it overall and then went character. Because we were both like, we need to figure out a way to do this. I don't have a chronological brain.
Yeah, you did have the can read. Yeah. So ratings. I will start with Lisa.
I finished on a 4, but it's a 3.5 4.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
4.
4.
Okay. So my Goodreads says that it's 3.5, but actually my little rating says that I've wrote in says 3.5. My actual rating was a 3 on Goodreads, and to be honest, it may be closer to a 3.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I like. Yeah.
Ash gave it a 4 and said it was very generous. And I should point out that when Ash saw my rating, she messaged me and basically was kind of insinuating that it should be more similar to what my rating was of a 3.5. So yeah.
Yeah. I do think that I was worried. Like I was saying to Tori that I've never, like, from all the Kristoff that I've read, now I can say that. I can say from all the Kristoff I've read, I've never felt a middle book syndrome from him. But this.
That would be her buzzer. I love that I know that that's the sound of Lisa's buzzer.
I just know that's how Lisa reacts to her buzzer. What was so? Because you gave it the highest rating of any of us, really. So what were your?
Yeah. I just definitely knew from about book 3 it wasn't going to be a 5-star.
Yeah, I will say
were okay for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if the narrator of book, like the female narrator, screwed me over a bit.
Yeah.
Because of the accents that she did. She pronounced it differently than he did, which pissed me off. But also she did such a big accent for everyone that I couldn't actually hear her properly. So I ended up reading Solan's parts.
Yeah.
And audiobooking his parts, which was what slowed me down. Like if I'd been able to audiobook it, I would have been finished the night before. But it took me ages to get through book 3.
What I would be interested in with you in particular is that because you haven't read as much J. Kristoff or other things, I'm going to say this when Lisa gets back, but I'm going to be very, very careful to not spoil other series, because one of the issues that I know that both myself and Ash had with this is that it's very reminiscent of other J. Kristoff books. And I'm really hoping that for you it doesn't spoil it, because basically it was done better in the other series.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was just saying, Lisa, we need to be very, very careful, because me and Ash have had a conversation about how this did have similarities to Nevernight. Well, not Nevernight, but God's Grave in particular. And it kind of felt like you knew what was coming because we've already read a series. But obviously, let's try not to say any spoilers, because Tori has not read that series.
Yes. Because after the EOTV live show, I got gifted them by a very beautiful, loving Smash.
I don't think having read this will make you enjoy God's Grave less. But what I think it might do is that when you read the Nevernight trilogy, I think you might come back to this one and go, actually, it's not a 4. I think it's the other way around. You might go,
actually, like what I was saying before the Amazon man rudely interrupted me. It felt middle book syndrome, but it was. I feel like it was just too long for what it was, and it's like I said to Tora, the first half was a 3. The only reason I bumped it up was just because of what happened near the end. But like you said, you could see it coming.
Yeah.
See, I don't mind them as a narrator. I didn't like. So the first time I read it, I started with the book, with the narration. Didn't like it. Read the actual book. And then when I reread it this time, I got into it. And because I think I've read them so close, I knew his voice already. But I hated her as a narrator. Not in a bad way. I think if she wasn't doing as many accents, it would have been fine. And to be fair, if she said cost the same way that he'd said cost instead of saying cost, I probably wouldn't have hated her as much as I did. But I was like, you can't change how you're saying something. It's not just a dialect thing. Like, it's not just like me calling something dubs and you calling it mud, which is the same thing, just a completely different word by dialect and region.
Yeah.
Like, you grew up together, even though you've been apart. Like, you can't have this much of a change in narration.
Yeah, because like she sort of spoke in a different way in terms of like it sounded more sort of like almost like ethereal, like it was because obviously it was a we do this, we do that, rather than it very much sounded like it was sort of like something more magical, which that's fine, but that still wouldn't change how you pronounce the words. But also, like, I do think that it's a weird one when you listen to audiobooks, because obviously the audiobook is going to affect your enjoyment. But at the end of the day, in a way, you have to kind of look past it a little bit, because when you're rating a book, you're usually rating it on the writing. So but obviously that's why you read those parts so that it didn't.
I mean, I literally gave up a few chapters into book 3.
Yeah.
And I don't think that was what spoiled my enjoyment of book 3.
Yeah.
But having just read Kingdom of Ash and going into this, especially book 3, where everybody was just, everything was hell. Like, Dior was just, it wasn't good. And I kind of expected it in Kingdom of Ash because of where we left off with Queen of Shadows. Like, I knew it wasn't going to be good, but I had no inkling that it was going to happen in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that took me a bit, but I'd also left it so late. I had no time to give myself a break.
Yeah.
And then like get myself prepared for it and come back to it. Like I've literally read that, I think, on Monday.
Yeah.
Maybe Tuesday. It was late. I left it too late, and then I suffered for it.
The thing with me with her accent was like when he sort of did her dialogue, it sounded more French than when she was talking. She sounded more
That's
British.
the weird thing, though, anyway, because he's not speaking with a French accent. So why would you have an accent for your sister? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's almost one of the bad things about having a dual narrator.
Yeah.
Like if it's dual narrators for friends or people that aren't related, you can get away with a lot more.
We had an issue with this when we read a book for the podcast where there was one narrator who did an accent, and it was like it was for the character, like it was that POV, and then no one else did the accent or attempted it very, very badly. Also with other Kristoff books, like if you ever listen to the audiobooks for the Aurora cycle, one of the characters is Australian and no one else can do the accent.
Yeah.
I will say I will never regret listening to the Illumine audio. Like that is amazing. But yeah, I don't regret listening to the audio. I don't think it necessarily slowed me down. I'm so used to listening to the audio that then having to swap to a specific bit where I had to read.
Yeah.
Slowed me down because I was like, oh, right, okay. How long have I got to read for? When can I like pick the audio? Because I was doing other things and I obviously had to stop.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't multitask, and it just, I think it got me out of the flow of reading where, you know, if you sit down and you can get in it if you're just physically reading. But that was a me thing, not a book thing.
Ash had not listened to the first audiobook, so I didn't know what the vibe was, which is, understandable. I also was very much aware of what Gabe sounded like, so it was fine for me. I will say, though, we're sort of like moving on from audiobook issues, but still kind of not looking at story and just looking at issues I had with things that weren't story. One of my big issues with Selene's chapters was actually that J. Kristoff forgot his own narrative device. So basically the whole framing of this obviously is that Gabe is telling the story to the vampire whose name I forget every single time.
Jean-Francois?
Yes. So Gabe is obviously telling the story to him. And obviously Gabe will sort of tell bits and pieces. He'll do a few chapters of one storyline and then he'll go, actually, no, I don't want to tell you this bit. I'm going to move on to another bit, which works fine because that is how somebody would verbally tell a story. Now, if you were telling a story and you were a person who can kind of maybe be in two places at once because you can be in like a physical form and then in a form that's sort of watching over someone else, if you were telling that verbally, you would not get to the end of every chapter and change which story you're telling. You would not do a chat without saying, oh, now I'm going to tell you this bit. But basically, when we got to the bit where it's further on in the book, but when you got to the bit where Selene is with Gabe, but then he's also watching over Dior, literally it read like a regular book without that framing device because it was literally sort of having a chapter. It was a bit where Selene was revealing something to Dior about his dad. It was like, oh, it's the first time I met him, your father. Finished that chapter and then went straight on to the next chapter talking about Dior. And it was like, oh yeah, we watched over this, we saw this. And then went back to that bit. And there was no, like I said, no discussion about it. So it felt like I was reading a normal book. And then all of a sudden we went into Jean-Francois asking Selene something. And I'm like, what? I forgot we were in this device. And it's like, don't set that up and then just get rid of it when you add a different POV because it makes no sense.
Yeah.
It was really irritating. Gabe did it with him. Like they had that.
Yeah, because Gabe went straight back to normal.
Shit has happened by this point, but like, you know, they have that back and forth, and it worked a bit better when I know it's skipping again, but like at the end when there was.
Well, no. So this is a bit that I believe Ash will probably put something in the comments about this because this was one of the bits that there we go. It was even worse when the siblings got together and they started telling the story together. No one has a conversation that flows that well. Yeah.
Have you seen all of us together?
You're not predictable. You've just ranted to me about this already.
The thing is, though, like,
sorry,
you get the sibling, like, Selena, I mean, it really grates on me when someone is, and it is very much a me thing. If someone, I don't mind religion in books, but when someone is that pious, it like, and the way that it's like she to the point where she kind of across like quite hypocritical in some ways. It annoys me. She was just the fact that, and I know that she has her reasons, but the fact that she just blamed Gabe for everything, and she like she hate. I don't. Yeah.
I don't mind that though, because like it's not necessarily telling you that that's a good thing. Like I
No.
didn't think like somebody being that pious and something like that, like I said, it's not. Well, knowing what J. Kristoff thinks about religion as well, like it's very much not supposed to be. This is the right way. You are supposed to be angry at it. You are supposed to not sort of accept what she's saying.
Yeah, it just and that sort of like I wanted to like her, even though her and Gabe had this sort of like, you know, dislike for each other and distrust of each other. I wanted it to be a character that's like, yeah, she's not like she's kind of against that main character, but I wanted to have that sort of like she's not great, but she's like, well, but I couldn't get behind her.
We're only on the second book, though. I still feel
Yeah.
like what will probably happen is like the sort of religious aspect of it will end up disappearing throughout the third one because, I feel like we're not. I'd be surprised if they're not sort of all on the same side at the end of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Formulaically, that sounds right.
I think it's interesting because it's two sides of the same coin. Gabe was that pious once, but he lost his faith. But yeah, because obviously, the entire series has been very religion heavy. To be fair, Nevernight is as well. And I think, with all of them, it is kind of a thing of like religion is kind of what they're taught. And then it's when someone starts to question that. And that's because obviously, like, was very much like the Order of the Silver Saints is very religion heavy. And it's teaching you to kind of hate yourself because you're born as this thing that is wrong. And then when they go, well, actually, though, I did actually like some of the bits I did like was kind of the religion side of it towards the end, where you sort of got the reveals about how vampires kind of going to be. And I am excited to delve more into that part in the third one. It just felt like it took so long to get to the reveals of any of that stuff, and like all we basically did for the middle section was just separate them. And I know you still had other things going on. We sort of focused on a different vampire house this time, but it just felt like nothing new was happening until you got to that end section where it was like, oh no, actually, let's give you some lore going on.
Yeah, I did. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I know that you had to do like a bit of the traveling and stuff, and obviously that's kind of happened. And I did kind of like it that, and I mean, I know Kristoff, so I should have known that there was something going to be pulled out of the bag. But like when Dior was enthralled, enthralled. I actually thought she was, because I was like,
Oh
well,
no, I
obviously
didn't believe it for a second.
I was like,
like,
but that's how they've lost her, then, isn't it? Like she's enthralled. That's how they've lost her. That she becomes. Yeah.
You're carrying on talking. Sorry.
No. Yeah. I just. For me, because I didn't want to. It's hard though, because with him, because I never know what to believe. I wanted to think she was fine, because obviously, what would be the point in getting her to this point just for it to be enthralled by a vampire? Like that.
I think this is the thing, though. It would have been more shocking if she actually was.
I thought that she was going to be enthralled, but that her blood would free other people, but like her healing, it wouldn't save herself. So like before we even knew that, I can't even say his name. I know how to say his name. The boy that she saved first and she healed. Like I knew he was fine because he'd like double took her at one point when instead of just doing something. And I was like, oh, okay, so your blood is cool. Like we can do this. And then obviously she had to do it again when she got back to the princess. Yeah. And I was like, right, okay, so you can do it. Then I was like, oh shit, but like her healing, can she save herself?
Yeah.
And I was really glad that she could, but I had a moment where I was like, is this gonna be as easy?
Messaging back then, but she's gonna be sad, but she's gonna be fine. I mean, I won't go on to the very end yet, but like the very end was also, I think, personally, very, very predictable. Like and by the very end, I mean like the last page.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I don't know Kristoff's books by himself. And all I've been told the whole way through 2 books was that we'd lost her.
Fair enough.
So
Yeah.
for me, not knowing Kristoff, because the only thing I'd read other than Empire of the Vampire is Illuminae, which is with Amy.
Yeah,
So
but it happens in there though.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know if that was a then.
Have you read all of the Illuminae files? I mean, I think they're pretty sure there's only Ash watching, so I will give spoilers. How many times do we think that Ezra's dead in that series?
We did an Amy plot device though, not a J one, but still, yeah. I also read it like 3 years ago, so I don't know. I don't know.
He dies in every book.
Yeah. But I think the Isla thing wasn't predictable for me. Like I didn't think that Isla was going to be the one that betrayed them. I kind of I thought that when everything was going too well and everyone was becoming enthralled and everyone was going to be like, oh, crushed it. I knew that something obviously was going to happen. There was still bits left of the book, and we are rolling in book 2. So I knew that something else was going to happen, but I didn't know it was going to be Isla.
I thought it was going to be Aaron.
I thought it was going to be Rain.
Adamant something was going to happen with Aaron.
I
thought he was unenthralled. However, we're staying saved. And then he wasn't, and I was like, "Oh, you fucker!" Like I was adamant.
I will say the Aaron and Baptiste stuff is probably my favorite stuff in this because they are probably actually my favorite characters, and because with them I did feel like a legitimate sense of like, I feel like the thing is that with Dior, like this is separate from even just sort of knowing what Kristoff books are like, is that Dior is too important of a character to have completely got rid of at this point. I'm not saying that Dior's necessarily going to survive, but when they're saying that we've lost her, it could be at a later date. That's do you know what I mean? It could be referencing something else that happened after.
Kidnapped. Like
it's too early to sort of completely take her off the page. Whereas with the side characters, with those are the ones that I am a little bit more concerned about, and like they're the ones that I'm like, no, we could kill these off and it'd be like it's sad, but it could happen. I've seen it happen before. Well, the thing, it's already happened in book 1. It has happened in other series. Like I'm like, it's thing because it happens in Aurora as well. Like it happens in a lot of them. And it happens in Illuminae. There's some very sad things in Illuminae. Let's not talk about one particular character. Anyway. So yeah, those were the two, like, because you actually thought that they died earlier on, because obviously you get the bit where it's like Dior's sort of heading towards them and finds out that something's happened where they were. And I was like, oh no, let's not do this. Then you get sort of the moment's relief where it's like, oh no, Baptiste is here, and then it's like, oh but
that bit for me was just like when they thought Aaron was dead, because it was sort of leading up to that, wasn't it? Because they wanted to get back to them, and I'm like, there's no way you're going to get back there and everything's going to be fine.
Well, at first you thought that both of them were dead. Then you found sort of one of them, and it's like, oh no, Aaron's fine, but also not really. Then you get to the bit where, like, obviously they're all sort of fighting against each other, and it's like, well, if other people get to him first, he's gone because he's enthralled at this point. And I'm just like, can we not keep giving me hope and then taking it away? But then
one of the things that hurt me the most was that she was so sure she had until the 3 days. And then, like, he'd already been drinking blood before they even found her. So he was already, and I was like, like, and then it went straight. Oh, that was just after the Aaron stuff. Honestly, like, book 3 wasn't the hardest for me to read necessarily just because of everything that, like, Aaron went through, but it was just constant. And it was like, it just didn't let me breathe.
I feel like it was actually the bits at the end that made me like sad, but in a happy way, where he actually like sort of starts when Baptiste is telling him the story of when that, and I was like, okay, don't do this to me.
Yeah, I genuinely thought, like, obviously because we've been through the rocky, like, at this point Aaron was enthralled and Baptiste had been enthralled and unenthralled. The betrayal of like Baptiste actually finding out that he like that, I didn't expect that. Like that was just like that came out of left field. And I didn't expect once Aaron had been in Thor to Nikita, I didn't think it was going to be undone. I thought that there was going to be, unfortunately, that like Baptiste would die at Aaron's hand.
Yeah.
So I was waiting for that to happen. I didn't want it to happen, and I think if that had have happened, that would have been the part where I cried. But
I still think there's going to be issues going forward, though. I don't think we're sort of seeing the end of everything.
Well, no, like he got off with another vampire. Marital issues. I'm joking.
Now it's going back to find my notes. My notes aren't coherent. Before we before we go into more sort of story based, I did have I took all of 3 notes when I started it. The first one was just said that I felt like he did take a moment to get started right at the beginning. Like it felt like we sort of left it at quite a dramatic point in the story, and then we were just traveling for a while. And then I just put strange little trio because they just made a very strange little group for the 3 of them together. But then my next note, which I just need to get out of the way, is once again we get to the book chat because I swear to God the bit where it's like J. Kristoff in every single book will have some sort of quote about how good books are, even though as we discussed last time, in this particular one, this character does not seem to be a reader, and yet still is very much waxing lyrical about it. I swear to God, the quote in this book was the exact same quote from the last book, or the same one. It was something that had already been said. I'm like, you're not even making original ones this time. The same thing.
I did feel like I didn't know how far you go with it. So when I heard that, I was literally going to message you, be like, "There's a book coming again." But I thought, oh, I don't know if she's read any of it yet. So
I'm trying to see if I can find it because I should have made a note, but I was like, I think I was traveling when I got to that bit, and I was like, stop it.
Yes. I genuinely heard it and went, like had a little giggle to myself because I was like, oh, there we go, there it is.
It made me so irritated. Like it was because, like I said, it felt. Oh, here it is. So this time it was, life without books is a life not lived. And I'm like, I'm sure that's been said before. There's a magic like no other to be found in them. To open a book is to open a door to another place, another time, another mind. And usually, mademoiselle, it is a mind far sharper than your own. I'm like, you don't read, Gabe. I've not seen you type this entire story.
And you literally made Astrid and Chloe do all your reading for you.
If we'd had it in the first book, and if Astrid or Chloe would have said it, absolutely fine. Yeah, he hung out in a library because he wanted to be near the women.
That is so true.
He was flirting with his soon-to-be wife. That's not reading. It's not. Thank you, Ash. Anyway,
Making an aesthetic. That is so true. What did you think of Dior as a character?
I mean, I do like Dior from the first one. Again, I felt like Dior's, well, I don't know if it was that Dior's storyline sort of was what bored me this time, or if it's more just that because at least with Gabe, like the entire sort of middle part bored me a lot, but at least with Gabe's you were sort of finding things out still and figuring out, like Selene, who is still weird to call her Selene and not Leafe, but you know what I mean? Like he still sort of had stuff, and we're used to his narration and things. And I think with Dior, what suffered a lot in this one is that because you were only seeing Dior through Selene's eyes, and it was always, like I said, Selene sort of like not actually even there, sort of watching over, and like it was, it felt like we did lose a lot.
I think because Leafe, whatever, like she couldn't speak. We couldn't speak. For a lot of it, so it was like, yes, okay, the tap, you got the yes, you got the no. But I think if it had been Dior's actual POV, it would have been better because at least you would have had thoughts and feelings and conversations and stuff. But at the same time, if she's lost in the future, you can't have her as a prisoner. So I get it, but like, I think I would have preferred it if it been her POV.
And I think that's the thing with Selene's POV. It felt like it was added in just for like, oh, I need to fix this narrative problem, as opposed to it actually being what would have happened in the story, if that makes sense.
I feel like you picked it because it was another immortal, or at least ageless type character who could still be around when this is going down, that isn't Dior, that could have been with Dior because he left himself with 3 people.
And the whole thing of how Selene could sort of see Dior during this time just very much felt like something that like was not. It didn't line up with any of the other sort of vampires that you see. It didn't make sense within the story. We'd not heard about it at all in book 1. It felt like it was added in just so that we could still have Dior's perspective. Yeah. And then the way that they were talking about Dior, it was like they were in Dior's head and they knew what they were thinking. I'm like, no, but you don't. And it
I think with that one, like you said, it didn't feel right, but also I know that she's sort of, we do find out later that she killed and his dad and took his power, but but up until this point, you're told there's certain types of vampires with certain powers, and you're sort of like told that this is what they can do. At no point are we told that they can turn into some kind of moth things, and when I first found that, I was like, she felt something inside. It was like a little moat, like a part of it. I was like, what?
I thought I was reading Strange the Dreamer.
Definitely not.
Go back to what I thought would happen in this book when I first originally read book 1. I think this book would have been more interesting had my fever dream actually happened. I can't remember what your fever dream was. I know you told us again. I remember you telling us in the last live show, and I've completely forgot what it was.
Yeah,
wasn't it the one where she thought that when she reread it, she thought that something entirely different had happened at the end?
Part of me thinks it would have been better if we'd had them together up until the fall of the bridge, followed Gabe, had him be really fucking sarcastic in the interview, because that's one of the things I loved the most about book 1, because it's just Gabe left, right, and center. Had him do the whole bit with Phoebe, and then re-meet and be able to like find out what had happened later, just like kept it from the one POV, but
I do remember this now. I remember at the end of it, his wife was alive and walked into another cell and she was just sat there. I swear this happened. What did vampire do? That would have been interesting because we know this is the thing as well. Like, again, I know we'd already met Selene, but it just felt like it didn't feel like the same character that we met in the first book at all.
No.
It just felt very strange. And like I said, it felt every time it was her chapters, it felt more like I could tell it was it's not necessarily a bad thing that it felt more like a standard book, but it didn't fit with how it had been set up before.
No, the whole point of it was the interview style and like the back and forth and that type of plot device it's used.
It also then said just sort of had like issues with like sort of the writing style for her. And then there was something else I was going to say and I can't remember what it was. Oh, this is it. So onto the wife. Obviously, in the first book, a large part of it is it keeps getting sort of haunted by her.
Yeah.
And we had it for one scene in this one where he thinks that his wife's there and then he sleeps with someone else instead.
That
it seemed like that was just very much like it seemed like his sort of grieving over his wife and child. His child was mentioned a bit more because of Dior.
Yeah.
It seemed like all that we'd sort of pinned it on in the first book, we were like, no, we're moving on from this now. And that kind of makes sense in the story of like, oh, he's got bigger things to think about, but not in the way that Gabe's been telling this story, because Gabe's telling this story after it's all happened. So if he's pining over his wife so much when he's telling the first part of the story, he would still be thinking about her in the second part because it's literally the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's that narrative device. He just doesn't seem to be able to figure out what he's actually doing with it.
Like, it made sense for, if he found somebody else to stop thinking about it. But if that had happened, then in the first one, he shouldn't have been pining so much.
Yeah. If it was a regular book, if it was told just in first person's perspective and it was told in a regular book, it would make perfect sense. But because you've got him telling this story, that wouldn't go away in the telling of the story over 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fully like Dior's my family now, it's all I can deal with. It's because Kristoff doesn't plan his books. Yeah, but sometimes it works, and I just feel like this one he's sort of bitten off more than he can chew with the concept of it.
Like a little bit more planning would have gone down better. Or at
I
least
did like Phoebe though. I did like Phoebe the Dust Dancer, but I didn't necessarily think that it needed a relationship between those two or a romance between those two. It could have been.
I also really had a lot of issues with just women in particular being portrayed in this book, and I've heard this sort of said about Jane Kristoff before, and I've never kind of subscribed to it because I was sort of like, no, I think it's sort of equal opportunity to this. But why is it that number one, with the way he was writing the sex scenes with Phoebe and Gabe, felt very male gaze, which I understand because obviously it is Gabe telling the story. But then it felt like every other female character we had to be sapphic in some way, and it felt like it was slightly fetishizing it a little bit, and it gave me the ick halfway through it. I was just like, okay, do you know what I mean? Like, it was just like every time a woman was on the period, he had to tell you about it, and it was just, there was just too many things to do with how the women were written in this that made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, I didn't like
a lot of the pictures in it are also women together. It's like, oh, we're always picking out those moments. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I think as much as I do like romance in books or like smutting books, whatever you want to call it, I there's a time and a place for it, and I feel like had we just focused on the actual storyline, at no point did Phoebe and Gabe's relationship enhance the plot or push the plot forward at all. It could have worked just as well, them forming a friendship and
another one.
Yeah, like them forming a friendship. No, it's fine. It could have worked just as well, like them forming a friendship and going to find the together because they were both wanted to protect her. They didn't have to have this whole sex thing as well.
And then also you had the moment of like bringing a husband back at the end of it, and then just getting rid of him within seconds.
Yeah, just to break Gabe's heart, like it caused him more damage. Like I didn't understand that bit.
No.
Well, I didn't understand quite a bit of this, to be honest, but I didn't understand why you would bring him back to kill him off again.
He'd been like basically tortured by her and had one eye now. I was like, you poor bugger.
Yeah,
but it's just the whole, again, bringing it back to like
and we've got a picture because we have to have all the like. There's only so many pictures. When you pick out at least 3 of them to be like 2 women together, always like half naked, it just feels a little bit strange to be coming from a male author. Anyway.
No, like when you've got like such an intense situation, where there's a big battle scene with Lily, like Lily is Lily, isn't it? Yeah. The big battle scene with her, and then all of a sudden there's this dramatic like Gabe's the woman that he doesn't love. Her husband comes back just to sort of, yeah. I didn't understand that bit. I could have done without the romance in this one, to be honest.
I don't feel like that's as much, but I definitely don't understand the point in the quick turnaround between him still pining and seeing his wife in his memory to sleeping with her, but not sleeping with her and sleeping with Phoebe, to then
that whole thing was weird,
completely on its like head and only being about Phoebe, but not really about Phoebe because obviously they're not allowed. But we're gonna go there anyway.
Yeah, they don't love each other, and the fact that this is like the cheesiest part. This is where I rolled my eyes and I was like, "Oh my god, you didn't!" Where they both were like, "I don't love you," and it's like, "I don't love you either," and I'm like, "Oh, bitch, you totally didn't do that." Like, how cheesy can you get? Like, that's just, oh, I don't love you, and of course you love each other. And you've been building to that like half the book.
Didn't understand why. Like, I get the wolf being like a shapeshifter if that's the line that he wants to go down, but why did it have to be the husband that she's moved on from? Like, they've literally had conversations about the fact that they both understand grief and they've both gone through it. And like, I thought that was actually a really good thing because obviously, grief is huge. Like, it doesn't go away that easy. But why then throw all of that conversation and all of that to the wind when, like, you've just added? Like, I didn't get that.
This was in response to my ranting about the female characters. And then we said it about female authors doing it with male parents. We should do it with male authors doing female. Yeah, because like I said, it was just there was just sometimes like some of the descriptions of things as well just felt very like. And again, I get it when it was from Gabe's perspective in a way because like that's sort of what his character is, but like it just, I don't know if it's because. Again, I'm going to be as vague as possible here, but obviously we've seen Nevernight has queer characters within it. That's not a spoiler necessarily. Most like I think every Kristoff book I've read has had some sort of queer character in it. Nevernight does it better, partly I think because your main character is your first person perspective is actually no, it's not first person, is it? Because it's somebody telling the story. So it's never first person, which is slightly different because there is a narrator in Nevernight, which obviously sort of takes you a step removed from it anyway. But also the relationships, that there are multiple sort of relationships that happen within it, and they're kind of balanced in what you see in terms of like the sort of the romantic scenes and things like that. And it just felt like the balance of it was a lot better in Nevernight, whereas in this it just started to veer a bit more to, if I have a female character, they will have to be queer and I will have to talk about it. And like I said, that's not a bad thing, but it is when it's done in a way that just feels like it's done from a male gaze perspective. I feel like I just need to make sure I say that. Like I'm not against sapphic characters, obviously. I say it as my current read is this book, which is very sapphic.
I think one of the things that caught me as well is that everything on Dior's POV is not from Dior.
Yes.
So you're seeing it from Selene watching Dior, which is where I had the issue.
Yeah.
Where with Gabe, you're getting Gabe's point of view. Gabe is deciding to tell you that this happened. He's happy to give the information because he's the one saying what happened.
Yeah, you're always kind of being voyeuristic with Dior and it's creepy. The thing is, it could have done with a really poignant scene where when he thinks he's sleeping with his wife and it's Phoebe, and then had this big thing of why he could be celibate or something. Yeah, because like obviously he had that moment of realizing it's Phoebe, but then he moved on from it really quickly. He was sort of angry, but then he was like, "Oh well, fuck it, why not?"
Yeah, that bit I didn't get. I mean, I could understand how, because they were friends, like he didn't want her to be embarrassed.
Yeah,
but yeah.
And to an extent, I could see how two people who'd lost everything found each other. They just felt very random. It isn't explored deeply enough for it to be a fully fledged relationship. No, it didn't. It's too convenient. And I think, again, that kind of does make sense that them have, like, I can understand two people sort of, like, just needing to sort of, like, if you need it to be a completely physical relationship, if that's what you just sort of need to get that out of your system. But that was very much shown that wasn't a thing that was an issue with him, because obviously, for one thing, until he met his wife, he was planning to be celibate the entire time, because like that was the whole point of being celibate. Saying he only sort of stopped that because he fell in love with his wife. And like when we have all the bits where he's they keep offering him the in the bit where he's actually telling the story, they keep offering people to him, and he's like, "Oh no, I don't need that." And I'm like, "But you did when it came to her, because you clearly weren't in love with her, but you were happy to sleep with her then." It made no sense.
Yeah, but he is starting to cave with the thralls and stuff, don't he?
Yeah. But yeah, it just felt very contradictory with sort of how we know him as a character at that point. Like, because then, why has he gone back on himself? And then, so like, I get him starting to cave with the thralls now, but why did he sort of go back to it? It's just,
always
I'm wondering if prediction time.
I don't know. I do get what you mean. Like, it is inconsistent with. It doesn't make it. Obviously, that makes sense. So it sort of ended up sleeping with Phoebe, and then obviously at the beginning in book one, it was very much like, no, I don't want anything to do with your thralls. I don't want that. I'm not that. But then obviously, bit of Phoebe.
It's very Brickfile hint where something has happened to Phoebe has made him become fully celibate, perhaps. But I don't know. It just, like I say, he just sort of came from nowhere. Yeah, and he wants to sleep with Dyson. Now he won't do it.
I mean, yeah, maybe, but also they've literally just had this thing where, you know, her husband came back and she was just like jumping on, well, not jumping on him, but like running to him because he was alive, and then she looked at him, and then obviously 2 seconds later he was dead.
Does anyone? I didn't realize we've been talking for so long already. We've been talking for 45 minutes.
Jesus Christ.
Most of my sort of comments now start to come towards like the actual ending. So does anyone have anything specific they want to talk about from sort of the middle sections before we move on to that?
No.
Just that I hated how they tortured Darren.
Yeah.
I did not like that. Literally.
I mean, I wanted, obviously, I like Lachlan intrigued me as a character, and then he sort of left and then came back and initially was just like, die, like you betrayed us, and then he was like, oh no, there's the Grail, all the Grail, and he's like, all right, okay, I believe you. I will come after you now. Try to keep it safe. It was just
There was too much in this book, which is why, like, even though it's such a long book, I'm like, we've been talking 45 minutes. Like, for some books, we'd still be talking for longer than this. But I feel like there's not actually that much to talk about because a lot of it was just filler.
Yeah. Until you come to the end. I think this is what I said to Tara. Like, when you come to the end and you come to the action, and like, obviously, you've got the Baptiste betrayal. Obviously, like basically for me, it started when they thought Anna and Baptiste were alive. That's where it's dead. Sorry, that's where it started for me. When you start seeing, like, you know, Baptiste is actually alive, Aaron's alive but unalive, like and like being tortured. Basically, the whole, I don't know if I heard you mention this, like the flaying his skin and like that whole thing, trauma to my brain. Like that was horrible.
That was the bit where I was like, oh shit, I fucked up. Like that literal having one page where I was like, oh my god, we've got Baptiste back. Yes. Second page, like 2 pages after that, Aaron's alive. Holy shit. Oh, no, wait. This isn't as good as I thought it was. Fuck. And then realizing the silver was there, which makes it even fucking worse.
I totally
forgot
about that.
I was like, oh, honestly, like there was about 2 chapters, I think, where it was just constant. And I was like, I fucked up because I didn't have the ability to, like, normally if I did that, I would put it down, like read something else and then like set myself up for it. And it just was like, I don't have this. Like, that's what I was meaning by, I knew there was going to be torture for like some of the other books that I've read because of what's happened. And it's normally in a series where something bad's happened at the end. So you're set up for the start of the next one, where obviously this happened
that way through.
out of nowhere. So that was fun.
I think same Smash. Same, like everything that happened at the end is what made me bump it up.
I mean, you're saying in the end, you're talking you're talking earlier than the end. You're about 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah, from like 2/3 of the way to onwards. When things started building up, when you started.
Yeah, see, I sort of
things started revealing.
I feel like the bit where I was still kind of bored at that point. Like I get it, like, but I was still sort of like fine. I think because they'd sort of lost me earlier on, it was more when we got to like sort of the actual end bit of sort of like the fight at the end that I started to get more invested.
I think I got more invested from being at Phoebe, like up the mountain and like being introduced to all of that. But I have a thing of that kind of characters and getting to see like all the different shapeshifters that there were and like different types and all the clans and stuff.
I like that.
I like that bit.
I like that, but I did. For me, it did start. It's always start. There. Obviously, when we were flicking between, we found out about Phoebe and her clan and all that was interesting. And then obviously everything that was happening with like their little plot to try and unenthrall everyone. I knew it weren't going to go well, but all that like little bit of intrigue that she was trying to have going on, like I did enjoy all that.
I also don't know if it was just me. I felt like there were too many characters introduced in this book. It was kind of rough-handed in the way they were introduced. I feel like everyone was sort of introduced and then very quickly sent away. And it's almost like, I feel like they're setting them up because they're going to be important in the next one. But like you said about the sort of like Lachlan and like him coming in, it was like, oh yeah, he's here and then he's gone and then he's back again, but he's mad. But then we find out this. And then even with sort of Phoebe and the clans and stuff, because like I could be remembering this wrong because this was when I was on a train to Brighton. But I believe that it was like, obviously you had the whole bit, and then don't they sort of like is it them that sort of chase him out, like they have to run away quickly because they've
because they were found when he bites her and after they've had sex.
So and that again, it's sort of like we were having this moment, and then it's like, oh, but we really need to get them back to where we need to be, so we're just going to really quickly move on from this again. And it was just like, everything was very quick, and I feel like again, I think they're going to be very, very important in the last book, but it just felt like it was a lot of things sort of thrown at you just to be like, oh no, remember this person for later. Like I feel like they're all going to be in that character list at the beginning of the third one.
So do you remember this person that we met? Because like,
and half the people that are in the character list that start the second one aren't there anymore because look, deaths. And then if you see their name, you'd be like, oh, Kristoff, you're out again.
Yeah, but I didn't know why, I didn't understand why Luca was introduced, but now you said that, it kind of makes sense that would be the case.
When all of the Silver Saints came back, though, like that was a huge push to the battle at the end when they all turned up.
Well, so the thing is that we still needed a connection to the Silver Saints because they're obviously going to be important. Because the thing is, as well, is if you think about it, Gabe is known as the last Silver Saint, but he's only known as the last Silver Saint in the story when he's telling the story. So something's going to happen to all of them. We've already got rid of some of them, obviously, in the last book because Gabe. But the idea of the Silver Saints is going to go entirely at some point in the next book. And or is it? Because that's the other thing as well, is obviously sort of getting towards the very end now, just jumping around. We can go back to sort of the big fight in a minute if you want to. But obviously it sort of gets revealed that in the last bit, sort of after he's finished telling the story, and it's he's talking to the two that are thralled there, and they're all sort of there and ready to help him. It's like because they do the chant, the thing, don't they, about the for the Grail, and it's like some deeper plan in motion here, which is what I said at the think in the first one, is that like clearly he's not just telling the story, he's not just been captured. There's something else that's going on here.
The name that got announced at the end, though, I did not see that.
Bad.
I did not see that coming.
Yeah.
Because obviously the whole way through it's been quite funny in the fact that like Jean-Francois can't remember this dude's name.
Yeah.
Every time Gabe's like, for God's sake, like remember the guy's name. Like you're sleeping with a fucker. Like his name is this. And then right at the end, he's just like, oh yeah, hi. And I'm like, honestly, like that was like the most shocking thing of the whole book for me. That and obviously the end of the battle. But like in general, I was like, oh, okay. Did not see that coming.
But I do think this is why, like, obviously, although he is known as the last Silver Saint, I would not be surprised if the Silver Saints were sort of in hiding, and that basically, I mean, what I would, again, I'm sort of jumping forward a little bit here because we do need to talk, obviously, about what happened to Dior at the end of the book. But it's what I would guess is going to the sort of setup for the third one is because obviously we've got it revealed that there is more going on in terms of what's Gabe's got going on there that the Jean-Francois doesn't know about. So we're going to have sort of like the end of this story, how we get to him being the last Silver Saint, and then it's this is what I'm intrigued actually about how he's going to handle this, because obviously we're going to have to go at some point from it being him telling the story to it just being a regular book, because it's just because you know, like when it gets to the points where you're sort of watching him tell the story rather than actually being in the story, it goes into third person there, doesn't it? And it's sort of like the vampire was talking to the last Silver Saint sort of thing. And we're going to have to go into that because there's going to have to be a resolution to what happens after the story that he is telling, because obviously there's still more to it. And that actually hasn't happened yet. If that makes sense.
She's also the last Lyathe. So everybody else, like we know that there's not very many of them. Obviously, Marion. Which we haven't mentioned yet, but like.
And I also and I assume that's why Phoebe's clans and stuff have all been introduced as well, because I assume it's going to be some combination of all of these groups of people that we've been introduced to, secretly been plotting, and that the whole plan was that Gabe was going to get captured, and obviously, and then again, like sort of jumping back to Dior, like I said, Well, you're saying, do we have to talk about what happened? Well, yeah, we do, because also it was a bit anticlimactic, because I, again, very much did not believe that she was ever in trouble. And then the very last sentence of the thing just says, what, she opened her eyes? Is that what it is? Something like that. And I literally just went, well, of course. And I was in the middle of, walking in the middle of Brighton, listening to it on headphones. And I just went, well, obviously. Yeah, and there in the dark, that girl opened her eyes, and I was just like, "Well, yeah, I could have seen that coming." Like, because so I actually had to go back and listen to when she got killed, because I was just like, I missed it, because it was talking so much about what happened to, is it Connor?
Yeah,
we're talking so much about what happened to him that I sort of missed, like, because she just sort of got a neck snapped, didn't she? And I was just like, did that actually happen, or like what? I don't know what's going on here.
It wasn't. Yeah, it was a bit anti. You'd expect her to be this big. Obviously, it was really sad to read how broken Gabe was about it, because obviously Gabe, that bit was horrible. But I knew that him being upset, was pointless, because she wouldn't be dead.
It's too early in the story for it to happen.
Yeah,
like, it's too early.
It was horrible to see him.
It was horrible to read
down.
And to think it could happen, but like, no, not after her not being thrilled.
Yeah,
like when she got through one thing, there was no way she was going to end the other. But yeah, it was just in my head. It just had this like image of Celine just sitting there, like twiddling her thumbs and just being like, da 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 da.
I mean, it does feel like Celine didn't actually believe that she was going to come back. Like, it did feel like she was sort of desperate and like, well, what do I do now?
I think one of her personalities was like, oh my God, she's not coming back. And the other one was like, shut up, bitch.
But I am intrigued to see Gabe sort of finding out that she's not dead, because clearly Gabe believes it. Also, can we just talk quickly about the moment where they are reunited? When because like they're in the middle of a fight and she doesn't even notice that it's him, and he's like, nope, stop. I've got you, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, their relationship, I could kind of, I do like their relationship. Like I said, for me, it would have been fine if there had been no romantic relationships, and it had just been about him trying to save her, because he's grown this attachment to her. They've gone from where they were in book one to where they are now. They've grown this bond. It's turned into a fatherly daughterly bond, and he really, really loves her, and wants to protect her. And he's trying to get these people along for the and to save her. Like, that would have been fine for me. Don't mind the romance. It was kind of a bit pointless, I think, but it wasn't horrible. But their relationship for me would have been fine. Like, working on that, like, that whole thing was probably one of my favorite things. Is like the way that they talk to each other, and like both realizing. And when she called him Papa, I was like, fuck, nope. That's just adorable.
At one point, I think it was before that, and like when he was in current day talking to Jean, and he said daughters plural, but then obviously like that was still further ahead than like them really admitting it, and I was like, I love that. Yeah, I don't think Phoebe and him added too much, but I do wonder if they would have got the clans to fight, considering they had to turn their back on the vampires and like the creed that they'd already done. If they hadn't had a stronger clans person fighting with Gabe to get them to go, it might have worked. Like, Gabe might have been silver-tongued enough to get it to turn around. But I could see him thinking that somebody from the clan would make that more attractive of a fight, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's the best thing, because again, I could have done with or without the romance, but if they've already like sworn for a few years that they're not going to fight, like the vampire and that, I'm wondering if that was maybe why he did it. But also Phoebe coming back, just in and of itself, as a person, I was like, literally, I think I actually swore to that, but I was like, oh, you fucker.
Yeah, I did like that.
I feel like until we get to the last book, I don't believe that anybody's dead.
No. But obviously we know that a lot of people are going to have to die.
Yeah.
It's just how they go about it. But in my mind, I'm thinking, like, prediction, I'm thinking that maybe they all think that he's the last Silver Saint, and they keep calling him the last Silver Saint, but they are all in hiding now. They're going to, like, rescue him.
Yeah, I honestly think that there is a contingent of them that are all sort of ready to fight. I think they've sort of secretly built a giant army, and that he seems like he's sort of on his own, but then actually,
and I really,
all that's leading it.
I believe at one point him and his sister were at each other's throats and did dislike each other. But I feel like now I've got a feeling it's all an act, and like it's gonna do a flashback to where he attacked her, that he actually gave her something, or she gave him something, or it's like something like where they exchanged a note or something, where it's gonna be like a whole flashback thing.
I mean, her silver mask came off when they fought.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think with because obviously I know that Gabe sort of in the past timeline, the minute after Dior's died, Gabe's sort of disappeared. I'm aware of that, and they're very much. I think that's very well. It's like he's left them, and I think that's very much been done on purpose because they want you to think that he thinks that Dior's still dead, but also because we know that in the modern, the sort of present timeline, he's clearly planning something that is to do with Dior because he says for the Grail. It's the argument that him and Stellan have when they're in when they're sort of first put together to tell the story in the cells is about him being mad that you knew what was going to happen to her all along. You didn't, like, that you knew more about this and you didn't tell us and all of this. And he's like very angry about, like, say, basically saying it's her fault for Dior being dead. If he doesn't, I like I said, it very much seems as if from him planning stuff about Dior, it seems that he knows that she isn't dead, even though he's gone away, that at some point he's going to find out she's alive in the past timeline, which would then mean that argument was an act, because he's like, they've already had this out, probably. They probably did have a similar argument. I think that it's happened and it's in the past, and now they've
actually teamed up and they've planned this whole thing to make them think we're captured, to make them think that we're...
Well, because also, like, the reason that he's sort of wanted is that he was the one who killed the one of the bosses. Like he's so that's why he's wanted. But obviously he's been sort of working his way through and sort of killing big members of different families throughout the books. So what I would assume is that obviously he's been captured. There's still some big people left, and I'm assuming he's sort of purposely got himself captured so that he can get to the sort of the bond that's holding him captive. Which I do know the name and I can't remember.
The Queen.
Yeah, it's a woman now, isn't it?
Queen
of one of the different families.
This
is like third head of a third family that he's in close proximity to.
And then it's going to be something, and obviously as well, it's something they're trying to sort of end the whole thing of, like, it being. I keep wanting to say, because I said in the last one, it's the opposite of Nevernight, whereas Nevernight, it was never.
Oh yeah, this
is the opposite way around. Yeah. So they're obviously going to be wanting to end that as well, and that's obviously something to do with Gabe as well, and like because his father was like a different bloodline and all of that. Like, it's all going to come together. Interested to see how it wraps up. To be honest, if they do that, I'll find it really boring. This was in response to me saying about everyone being in hiding, and then it'll just be one big thing. Will come out of nowhere. It'll be like Avengers Assemble, like then, like, you know what I mean, like the in Endgame, where it's just like and they all come out of the portals.
I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Part of me wonders if when Dior died, if they managed to keep her hidden so they don't know she's still there.
Yeah, I think no one else knows she's there, but I really think that Gabe knows she's there.
Sorry. The fly.
Does anyone else have anything in particular that they want to discuss?
No. That's my prediction, is that everything's going to turn out peach. Well, it'll be bittersweet. Someone that we love is going to die.
Yeah, some people are going to die, but I think the general vibe will be that things do get resolved.
Yeah.
Whether it's a fully sort of happy ending or if it's like as happy as it can be for some people. But I think that the whole concepts of like sort of for the world at large will be resolved.
Yeah, agreed. I think that too.
And like I said, I do think that
Aaron back.
Aaron and Baptiste will live happily ever after. Oh God, no, they won't. But sorry, I'm prepared for them not to be.
Yeah,
me too. But I can hope.
Ash, do you have any final predictions or comments you would like to put in the chat? And give her a minute to catch up. I'm aware that there is a delay. Oh, but no. I will say that I don't know if you've how closely you follow. I just I hope you love Never Night. It is a better series, and I've really been like. There's so many things where I wanted to go. Oh yeah, but like this was done so much better in Never Night, and I'm very looking forward to saying that to you when you've read it. If you would actually, when you have read it, what I suggest you do is go back and watch the live shows that we did for the first ones, because I got the annotated LitJoy editions, so you can go through and you can hear me just give you all the annotations that are interesting. You get extra information. It's great, but you can't do that until you've read them, obviously.
That's okay.
Especially just also when you do read them, I have a request for you, and that is throughout the series, I need you to send me your guesses of who the narrator is. Because we're not told who the narrator is.
A separate chat where there's me, well, has everyone in our group chat read it? No, they won't done.
No,
but I think most people want to read it.
Yeah. Just send us all a message.
When Toria's read it, so we can just read. Yes, I want to guesses as well. Yeah, so basically this was the theme. So when we did the live shows for Never Night, it was me, Lisa, and Ash. And it was Ash, wasn't it, on that one? Yeah. And we were, and Catherine was there as well. And when we were doing it, we had sort of a mixture of people that had read it and hadn't read it. And me and Ash had read all of it, and Lisa had read the first book. And then and basically we sort of were having guesses of who the narrator was throughout it, because me and like it's very much like the narrator like talks to you, the reader. It's like what's
gentle friend.
Gentle friend, that's it, throughout it. It's very much directed to you, and it sort of leaves it at the end with sort of like inviting you to come back and all that sort of stuff. And it's very clear that the narrator knows the main character in some capacity, but we're not sure how. And we kept making Lisa guess who the narrator was. And
I love guessing so much.
So then it got to the last one, and I'm like, do you see where it is now? And me and Ash rereading it, we're like, oh, but we can see this. We can see all the clues. And it's great.
I do want to reread that already.
Ash and Lisa have both been on the end of being like, so I've read this before. What you thinking? I really need to stop doing read-alongs for things I haven't read. I'm really excited to do Poison Study because I've read
all the knowledge.
Yeah.
You all just love teasing me.
That we do, kiddo. That we do.
But yeah, so I think that is pretty much everything we have to talk about. So thank you both for joining. Thanks to Lisa for being the co-host for the last year that we've been doing this, year and a bit. Thanks, Tori, for joining us for this particular series. Like I said, we might end up doing something for the third one, but that's what I was going to say before we think. I don't know if you particularly follow J. Kristoff on his social media at all, but he has been talking about writing the next one. He is already a good chunk of the way into it. He says that it won't be as long of a wait as it was for this one. So I would fully expect that it's coming out next year. So shouldn't be too long, whereas last time it was like a year and a half or whatever it was. So it was 2021, the last one actually, so it was longer. It was like 2 and a bit years. So I
remember sitting on my sofa in that corner when there was no wall and I had a different sofa.
I remember because I came down to London. It was when I was still living back in Sheffield, and it was the first like trip I'd done by myself since lockdowns, and it was September 2021.
Wow.
I'm not waiting on Bated Breath, to be honest, which is really sad. I'm trying to see if I can find the tweet where he said about how many.
The worst part is sometimes waiting on bated breath is actually worse though, because like I wanted, like I've got Fragile Threads down there, but I'm so terrified about it that I haven't picked it up yet.
Read it.
It's down there.
It's good. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't my favorite in the series, but it was more just because it took a minute to sort of get back into like they had to sort of remind you of where you were in the world. But there's okay. I think that I can see there's only one person watching, so it's fine. It was just actually, has Ash read Dark Shade of Magic?
I think so.
I'm going to wait. I'm just going to read you this tweet and then I'll talk about that. Do you know what? I could just wait until we're backstage. There we go. Jay Kristoff said that you don't need to mute. I'm going to tell them when we're backstage. So Jay Kristoff said that he, by the end of this month, he'll be 190,000 words into EOTB 3. The finished book should be about 280,000 words. So he is about 2/3 of the way there. He said, so you won't have to wait that long. So. Right, so that is everything. I'll go back to thanking everyone for joining us. Thank you in the comments. And yeah, I would say we'll see you next time, but we won't. And I don't know when you'll next see my face again, but you'll see these two. She does regular videos. This one does sprints and has multiple other read-alongs happening.
I love that.
On that note, bye.